Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Chris and this is of course the DCS World AH-64 Delta that has just been released. This video will be a first look impressions from someone who's mostly fixed wing in terms of what I fly in the simulator. I know how helicopters fly, but I am not that experienced in something especially this complicated. So this will be a first look in case you're thinking about purchasing this helicopter, but also if you've got the helicopter, it'll be a quick dirty dive in how to get going from engines running, as you see here, to firing a cannon and shooting off some rockets, so the fun stuff. By the end of this video, you'll have a good idea about whether you want this aircraft to be in your virtual hangar, specifically if you're new to helicopters. So let's dive straight in. Here we are in the cockpit. There are two cockpits. We can swap between the two by pressing the 1 key and the 2 key. 2 key puts us in the gunner's seat or co-pilot. Nice rifle on the right hand side, and you can see already the modelling and the texturing throughout is fantastic, as you can well expect from DCS World models. But as I'm a pilot, I want to go and sit in the pilot seat, so pressing 1 to go into the rear seat. The reticle you see in front of the eyes is authentic for what Apache pilots actually wear, and it will have the helmet mounted display. In essence, your head-up display is attached to your eye. It also gives you the option to slave the cannon and shoot where you're looking. Be careful not to sit on these. Setups for this, I'll put the keybind list for what I've set up for this initial flight in the description below, so be sure to check that out. But in terms of simple setup, as soon as you get this helicopter, you will need to go into the axis assignment and make sure you have something appropriate for the Cyclic, the collective, thanks for that, and the anti-torque pedals. You will need all those assigned. It will come on, or it will default to having the rudder pedals also giving you pitch and collective, so that will be disappointing if you try and fly in that configuration. So be sure to check out your axis assignments. Other keybinds that I've linked already will be the trigger first and second stage. I've got views for external and internal. And I've got the weapon selector switch or weapon armament switch. You may hear WAGs on Eagle Dynamics talk about it being the WAS. And the WAS essentially tells the aircraft what weapon system you want to use. The WAS up is for the gun, WAS left will be for the rockets. More on that in a second. So before we go, let's set up the weapons. On the ground, you can go ground override for the armament. That means you can play around with the weapons on the ground. And we can also select the armament to arm in just a second. On the MFD on the left-hand side, if you press the system page and then the eng page, you'll eventually get to this page where you have a weapon on the left-hand side. Click weapon, and you have an overview of what is attached to the helicopter. At this stage, let's have a look on the outside. On the outside, you can see the modelling is exceptional. You can see we've got 4 rocket pods. Goodness knows how many rockets that is in total. You've got the cannon underslung, and the modelling itself looked brilliant throughout. Great PBR texturing. Other things you can see on this page, you can see safe is up here. If we go to arm, that arm goes yellow, and if we now toggle to gun by going that WAS up, you can see the arm is now with a black check mark around the outside, and you can see in the reticle you've got rounds 300, so you are good to shoot the cannon at this stage. Apart from, there is a safety switch on the Cyclic that you'll need to assign a keybind for, and I'll open the cover for that now. Not that you can see it from here, but we're good to shoot now that I've opened that cover. If we WAS up again, you can see that deselects the gun, and if you try to pull the trigger, you just get a weapon question mark. In fact, will it work? Yes, you get a weapon question mark in the lower right hand side. If you select gun on this weapons page, you'll now have extra options. On the left hand side, you have got your burst limit, so it's defaulting to 10, so if you hold the trigger you get 10 rounds and then it stops. That's no fun, so I've set it to at least 50. Of course, you can set it to all and fire off 300 rounds with one squeeze of the trigger. If I go WAS up, we now have gun selected, we have gun armed, and we just need to take off and find something to shoot at. That is the gun. Now we're ready to take off. First thing you'll want to know is, how is this like to fly? Now, DCS helicopters are renowned for being very good with their flight dynamics, and this aircraft is no exception. So let's give it a go. Apply some collective, a little bit of left anti-torque pedal. And we're off. First thing to note, this wants to move around a lot. Really small movements required in order to keep it stationary. WAGs goes into some nice details about how to hover successfully. And I haven't watched those, as you can probably tell, but I'm not doing too bad considering this is probably my 5th hover. What I would say is if you're not used to helicopters at all, a couple of things to bear in mind. One, you might want to practice on something a little bit simpler. Maybe Microsoft Flight Sim, P3D, something like that. The dynamics aren't brilliant in those platforms, but you'll get the idea of how to coordinate your right hand, left hand, and your feet. Second thing to bear in mind is to have the right hardware for this. So I'm flying with a Thrustmaster Warthog HOTAS, so I've got the stick and the throttle, and I've also got MFG crosswinds. I'll put a link for those in the description below. The key to my stick is I've got a 10cm extension tube. If you just had the Warthog joystick, you'll find that the spring is very stiff, and that doesn't make it very conducive to flying helicopters because I'm having to use such small inputs, it would be difficult to control. So if you do have a Warthog joystick, I would recommend an extension tube, or if you're on the market and you want to fly helicopters, then something with a light spring loading is essential to fly this accurately. You can of course fly this with a twist grip joystick if you wish, so it has the rudder axis built in, and it will work, but you'll find that you won't be learning how to fly helicopters, and with this fidelity you'll be missing out on half the fun. So you can practice on something simpler, or if you do get the Apache, just remember it's going to take you a while to get to grips with flying this accurately. This aircraft comes with full flight dynamics and engine responses. If you do something too rapid with the throttle, bad things will happen, so let's have a look. Power up. If you ask too much of the collective, then the RPM will go low. If you ask too much of the anti-torque pedals, your RPM will go low. If you haven't flown helicopters before, the controls called Cyclic, the pitch, forward and aft, and left and right. Your left hand, which is usually the throttle, is now your collective. And collective is not the throttle. Collective actually changes the pitch of the rotor blades, give you more lift, and the engine compensates by adding power to it. There is a separate throttle, I think it's the black twin lever down to the left hand side, that you can set as required for your stage of flight. But the throttle is something separate. Of course, to fly nice balanced turns requires input on all stick, collective, and anti-torque pedals. Flight dynamics. Very realistic, very challenging. It's enough to keep you busy on its own. But let's try the gun now. So we are weapons armed. We have rounds displayed in the reticule, so I should be able to look and shoot. I've already raised the safety cover. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to commit some fratricide, but let's see what we can shoot at. Very satisfying. The noise is excellent. The delay between the noise and actually seeing the rounds hit is really nice. And just don't sneeze whilst you're shooting, otherwise those bullets will go everywhere. Have a little look from the outside. Let's pick a target over here. Very cool. And that's the gun. Simple as that. Now we're going to have to fire some rockets. So to select the rockets, I'm going to go WAS left. You'll see an I-bar appear. And that I-bar will slew left and right depending on where your head is. If you want to know exactly where your rockets are going to land, you'll need to put your head dead ahead, and your I-bar will overlay your cross. At that point, you know where your rockets are going to land. But that's it. We're good to shoot. Let's go for it. Well, that caused satisfactory carnage. Let's swing back around for another shot. And this is not one of those models that is easily flown from the outside. If you've flown Microsoft Flight Simulator, those aircraft are easy to fly. This needs a lot of reference to instruments in order to fly accurately. Here we go. My goodness, that's a lot of fun. And there's a lot more rockets to be had. So there you go. We've shot the cannon, we've shot the rockets. It is as simple as that. What is not so simple, however, is transitioning to the hover. So let's take it back around. We'll land on the reciprocal. We're currently heading kind of northeast, and we'll swing it around to the left. In fact, hang on. There's one more target of opportunity. I never want to miss out on target of opportunity. Oh, you can probably tell that that's just satisfying on its own. I've only been flying this helicopter probably a good solid 30 minutes, maybe up to an hour, just practicing for this video. And already it's fairly intuitive to get these rockets working. Let's deselect the rockets by a left WAS, and we'll come in for the hover. If you've not flown a helicopter before, or one with decent flight dynamics, what you'll find is as you reduce your forward flight, you'll have to increase the collective, because actually when a helicopter has forward flight, it will produce lift like an aircraft does. As you slow down, it relies more and more on the down thrust of the blades, which is requiring more collective. As you apply more collective, that's a bit more torque, and to overcome it, you'll need to press on the left torque pedal. And getting that combination correct as you come into the hover is where it is won or lost. That's probably one of my better transitions, to be honest. Sorry, that is awesome. That's very cool. Alright, now that I've done that, let's get back into the hover. Come on. Here we go. I believe on the right-hand side of my helmet-mounted display is my altitude, perhaps in feet. 10 feet. And I think the line represents my motion. I've still got a little bit of forward motion. There we go. Not too bad. Kick it down gently, gently, gently. 3, 2. Oh my goodness, come on. We're down. Success. It's a challenge, but it is fun. This aircraft, it's still available on early access discount. It's 20%. It is $64 or equivalent in your currency, whereas when it's full release, it'll be $80. And if you want to fly this mission, this is the Caucasus AH-64 Delta Live fire range. I'm sure there's a range around here somewhere. Unfortunately, I just decided to commit fratricide. But this aircraft, I think, is phenomenal in its level of detail. The texturing, the modeling is, as far as I can tell, faultless. The implementation of the reticule is intuitive, is novel, is something different for a flight sim that I certainly haven't seen before. And like I say, this aircraft is great to own, great to fly, as long as you're willing to put the time in to learn and fly it correctly. That was lucky. There's a road down here and I've seen some cars driving along it, so I'm going to push up on the WAS to get my gun. I can see I've got 191 rounds, correction, 181 rounds remaining, and let's find a target. Will I be able to get this target? Oh, it was close. I think if you're in the car, you'd certainly be changing your travel plans, that is for sure. I mean, if the police had these, it'd be so much easier to catch those criminals in a high-speed pursuit, that is for sure. Oh! Oh, I do have rounds. Well, it would appear that the bad guys are safe from me today. One last target of opportunity, 36 rounds remaining. Well, I think there's definite few hits on that. If you're still with me, thank you for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. This is a helicopter I'll be flying a lot more, so if you subscribe, you'll stay up to date with all the future videos that I do on this helicopter. Until the next time, take care.